Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 11th of August. This is going to be my outlook for the day. Right, so yesterday we talked about the scenario where we trade back inside the 5 weeks of value, given an underside retest. And then we did get that on low time frames. So far we just traded into the POC here. I think there's still a possibility that we trade up from here, right? This is an important level to hold. I talked about it during the weekly outlook. This would really be bullish invalidation, for any chance to trade higher. Given that we've left behind a pretty big selling imbalance, we're below previous week's VWAP, which I think was also important, or remains important. I think the probability is that we probably do continue to trade lower, potentially finding some resistance around this imbalance and last week's VWAP. We're back below the 7 and 30 days here. I mean, that's neither here nor there at this point, I would say, but we are trading below those levels. So, the most likely scenario I see is that we probably spike into the imbalance around previous week's VWAP and potentially just continue to trade lower from here into 63k, completing that traversal of the 5-week composite, and then potentially all the way back down to 61. But that said, this is the highest volume node of the past few months. If we can hold here, there's still a chance that we push higher. And so, this is not really a particularly good trade. It's sort of a B setup at best. And therefore, is it even worth me taking that setup? If I get something very clear in terms of where we trade into on the developing day, possibly, right? Possibly. Let's take a look on the developing day and previous day. Maybe we get a bit of confluence here. Yeah, so previous day's VWAP, previous week's VWAP kind of sitting in the same sort of area. If we get a clear rejection in this imbalance, there may well be a decent entry here, right? For sure. But I wouldn't say it's particularly high probability. So, I mean, it's summer, isn't it? It's summer chop. We are into the final throes of this sort of bear market, I think. Hopefully we get another big spike lower, and that would be an easy opportunity to pick up some BTC at lower prices. But I just think it's just not worth forcing things at this stage, right? You will get a few high probability opportunities. I would say this was a high probability opportunity last week, given that we had a failed breakdown. I think there was a decent entry yesterday. If we come and zoom in, right, we just traded back inside. We were failing clearly at this composite high. We had a nice excess on this wick, having swept this high, and then we traded back inside this 5-week comp. So nice, like low time frame rotation here, back inside value, and a pretty clear rejection off the underside of the 5-week value high here. So this was I would say this was a high probability setup, right? You can get these a few times a week. There's the trade into the POC. Maybe you want to hold that for lower. But in terms of that leg, that's the trade done. 5-week composite low is still a logical downside target if we lose this level. But, are we just going to just compress here and then trade lower? I think that's the most likely thing, right? So given that, we've formed this tight value here, continuation from this is most likely, right? So any kind of failure above, reacceptance underneath, we're probably going to just see downside continuation. So yeah, bearish continuation I say is the most likely thing, but it's not sort of super high probability. Which is not what I expected coming into the week, honestly, because given the time we've been spending here, the way the rolling VWAPs are compressing, really looks like quite a good bullish setup, honestly. But obviously we haven't been able to break above resistance yet. So, if we can get above 65k convincingly, break this 5-week composite high, then we can change our bias and start looking at higher prices again. So what would I say the high probability setups are? If we can break the 5-week composite high, any kind of retest of this area is going to be a good entry. I prefer that, honestly, to shorting here. Other than that, there isn't much at the moment, right? So, as I say, that short yesterday was good, but there's nothing high probability given the location we're trading at now, right? We want to be looking at the extremes and seeing if we can accept and see continuation or rejection from these areas, not looking to trade around a high volume node in particular. So, today, I'm probably not going to do anything, honestly. I don't think there's much going on elsewhere in crypto either. Still holding the pump spot bag. Doge looks okay. I mean, we talked about this. I think I called it out at the weekend. It doesn't look too bad. Back above the 7 days, starting to round out a bit here. We've seen that compression between 7 and 30. Is it ready to trade higher? I don't know. But if we can see that flip of this value low, I think that's a reasonable trade. It might be a 5-6% rotation, not to be sniffed at in these conditions. Hype is bracketing between in this old 4 days of value, just continuing to chop. Nothing really to do there. ETH, I would say, probably cooked. So yeah, we talked about this needing to flip this 1935 level. It hasn't happened. So yeah, looks potentially quite bearish, right? You could potentially let's trade this on a breakdown even. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of value here so far. 3-4 weeks of value. So quite a nice bracket that we've created. It is a bit of a double distribution though. Don't love that. So yeah, maybe previous week's VWAP is a good location to look at for an ETH short potentially in this imbalance. Just back into that low volume node. Possibly, right? Possibly. ETH is probably going to be better short than BTC, right? If the top is in here, doesn't look very good, does it? So yeah, maybe an ETH short is more appealing. Otherwise, yeah, ZEC was a good short again, just taking out this high, failing to hold in this value, retesting previous value. Yeah, that was a good short yesterday. What else is there? I'm looking at sort of SUI and AKT as potentially in good sort of accumulation zones, but I'd rather buy lower. Yeah, there's not a lot going on, is there?